Welcome into a new hour of CBS Sports HQ. I'm Amanda Guerra here with you. Week 17 is almost done. The playoff picture is now a lot clearer than it was before Week 17 began. We will give you a look ahead and a betting preview of Monday Night Football and what could be Ben Roethlisberger's last home game. But we begin with one of the most bizarre things that we have definitely seen all season. Antonio Brown always seems to be the center of attention, and Sunday was no exception. The Bucs wide receiver took off his jersey there, his pads, and then eventually his shirt. Threw some of them into the crowd, waved to the crowd, and then left. Kind of danced in the end zone for a second. And the Bucs win over the Jets. There were reports that AB refused to go back in the game. More reports that he felt like his ankle was too injured, but of course we see him running there. After the game, Coach Bruce Arians said plainly that Brown was no longer a Buck. Of course, he was peppered with questions about that yet again today.
Bruce, obviously you guys gave Antonio a chance and he helped you guys win a Super Bowl last year. You have him this year. Were there any type of regret? How will you look at this whole experience now that it's ended this way?
No, I have no regrets. I just hope the best for him.
So here's the thing, Antonio Brown's timeline is so lengthy, we actually had to fit it on 2 pages, and that's a lot of words just on 1 page there. He came to the Bucs last October, did help the team to a Super Bowl, but it does appear that his timeline in Tampa Bay is up as you continue to take a look at it. Of course, in 2020, he was suspended 8 games for violating the NFL conduct policy there. Just a whole lot of stuff, even dating as far back as, if you remember, the freezing of the feet incident and trying to sneak in his old helmet. Broncos are assured of a 5th consecutive losing season after falling to the Chargers on Sunday. Our NFL insider Jason La Canfora reporting that Denver is preparing to find a new head coach, but Vic Fangio insists that the 7-9 Broncos are close to contending.
We're close to being there. We got to find a way to get over the top, and that's involves players making another play or two. That involves coaches making better calls in a situation or two per game. But I believe in this team, and we're on the cusp of getting to the point where we want to be.
And as you can see, it's been a very rough ride for the Broncos since beating the Panthers back in Super Bowl 50. They have had just 1 winning season since then. They have failed to make the playoffs every single year. Under Fangio, they are about to finish in last place in consecutive seasons for the first time dating back to 1971. Miami Dolphins were officially eliminated from the postseason with Sunday's blowout loss to the Titans. It has been a roller coaster of a season in Miami, just basically a tale of 2 halves. The Dolphins dug a deep hole with an early 8-game losing streak, but they got back in the hunt after a 7-game winning streak. But now they will officially miss the playoffs for a 5th straight season. Here's more from Brian Flores.
There's a lot of emotions that come with, being eliminated. And I think it's easy to, go and lament, all those feelings. And the hard thing to do is to kind of pick yourself back up and move on to the next challenge, which we need to do.
Dolphins disaster. Please take a look at that. Our producer Noah worked very hard on coming up with exactly what to put their Dolphins disaster fins down. Either way, it's not good. Everything went wrong for the Dolphins on Sunday. The Miami defense that had played so well during the winning streak was pretty much absent, giving up 198 yards on the ground with only 1 sack. The 34 points made by the Titans were the most the Dolphins had given up since they fell to the Bucs back in Week 5. Meanwhile, that Dolphins loss on Sunday also helped the Patriots clinch a playoff spot. The Patriots beat the Jags 50-10. New England can technically still win the AFC East with a win over Miami on Sunday. That combined with a Bills loss to the Jets. Either way, the Pats are back in the playoffs after a 1-year absence. Here's more from Bill Belichick.
When you start the year, you want to be into the postseason, and so the fact that we're one of the playoff teams is obviously part of the goal. So long way to go. We'll see what happens, but you certainly want to be playing in the postseason. That's the idea.
Almost a smile there from Bill Belichick. Not really. Sort of a smirk, but we'll take it. A lot of words from his as well. Also of note, Bill Belichick notched his 20th 10-win season, tying the late Don Shula for the most in NFL history. Call him Tiger King, cigar smoking Joe Burrow has definitely lived up to his expectations, if not exceeding them a little bit. The Bengals hosting the Chiefs on Sunday managed to take down Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, clinching the top spot in the AFC North and sending the Bengals to the playoffs for the first time in 6 years. Joe Burrow telling the media after the game, "You guys sort of laughed when I told you earlier in the season we were heading to the playoffs. I was telling you the truth." Let's welcome in two of our quarterbacks, Brady Quinn, Danny Kanell here. I want you guys to know today we found the tape where Pete Prisco said exactly how many Super Bowls the Bengals were going to win with Joe Burrow. He said 1, he would not rule out 2. So take that as you will. It is now on tape here. Let's talk about Joe Burrow. Brady, I'll start with you. I remember your Instagram a while ago. You said the things Joe Burrow has to work on going into the draft, nothing. How impressed are you with him this season?
Well, the funny thing about Pete Prisco's proclamation is that he was the #1 overall pick, and he had the greatest college football season we had ever seen for any college football player ever. So kudos to Pete Prisco for really going out on a limb. And I believe he said multiple at some point after the clip, I'm sure, in which we found in the next 10 years, which is now 9, which if they don't win this year would be 8. But I digress. Look, the reality is Joe Burrow has been everything the Cincinnati Bengals fan base organization has hoped for, even the NFL has hoped for. I think when you look at some of the older quarterbacks, one we're going to talk about in a minute, who are future Hall of Famers that are transitioning out of the NFL, you need to find new faces to replace them. Joe Burrow is one of those new faces. And I think you look at the connection he's got with Jamar Chase. We saw it at LSU. It should be no surprise to people that these two have the sort of chemistry that remind you of, dare I say, Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. Yes, I think they can be that good together. Now, I don't know if that means they're going to be winning a bunch of Super Bowls, because that has a lot more to do with this Bengals organization and their team as a whole, and then playing in one of the tougher divisions in all of the NFL and the AFC North. So there's still a lot left to be said there. But in regards to the stats, the numbers, the production, the chemistry, the wow factor to both of these players, in talking about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, that's who they remind me of. And so I think they're special. It's going to be fun to watch for a long time to come. And being able to take care of the Kansas City Chiefs as they did gives us just another one of those teams to look out for in the future that's going to be contending with the Chiefs for that #1 overall spot and a chance to go play for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, this can be an incredibly fun race to LA with the AFC teams that are out there and some great quarterbacks. And yeah, just to echo on the Pete Prisco predictions there, and we could all spray the board and just make a bunch of predictions, and surely one of them will hit at some time or another. So we could both do that. But I digress. Getting back to Burrow, Brady nailed it. But I do think there's this intangible aspect to Joe Burrow. Like, and this is where I love the comparison to Montana and Rice, because he's just cool. Like, it's just, there's a cool factor there. And I think there's a belief that comes not only from the fan base, but more importantly from the players around him, that they can look up the scoreboard. It's 28-14. They're down to the, this high flying, Patrick Mahomes, and one of the better teams we've seen in the recent history. And everybody's like, so let's go. Like, give it to Joe, put the ball in his hands. And you've heard him say that before on the sidelines to his teammates, when he's mic'd up, just give me the ball in my hands. And that confidence oozes out from him, and it's infectious to the rest of the team. They start buying in, they start believing. And there is an incredible amount, encouraging aspect to that is a real thing. When you believe that your quarterback can take you from any position, no matter how far you're down, and bring you back and win, like you can't put a price tag on that. And he gives that to that Cincinnati offense. And with pair him up with Jamar Chase, and these two record-setting seasons that they're having this young in their career, Brady might be onto something.
I'll say, as soon as he had the cigar after the national championship, we knew he was cool then, because that was very cool for a college player to do. And yes, as of note on that graphic, you saw Joe Burrow making headway on Dak. He is now -105, right behind Dak Prescott's 125 for comeback player of the year. All right, Joe Burrow impressing all of us. Let's talk about another team or player that impressed you in Week 17. Danny, we'll start with you here.
I'll go with the Rams. I mean, the Rams, it wasn't pretty, but they got past the Ravens. But I did want to single out Cooper Kupp. Like, usually when we've talked about the Rams, it's been about Sean McVay and it's been about Matthew Stafford, making the move for him, dealing him to bring him to LA. Even, when they brought in Odell Beckham, that was going to be like the big move that was going to be the difference maker. Well, one person's been consistent, and that's been Cooper Kupp his entire time when he's been at the Rams. And not only is he the feature of the Rams, look at what he's doing historically speaking. He's having one of the best seasons all time in the history of the NFL. And you start putting his names up there with guys like Randy Moss, Marvin Harrison, Jerry Rice. That speaks volumes to what he's doing. You can make a case that he is the offensive MVP for this team, which rarely happens. Usually we give that to the quarterback, but there has been one consistent feature of this Rams team who now sits in the driver's seat. A win against San Francisco next week, they win this division. That's remarkable, and Cooper Kupp deserves a ton of the credit for this team being in this position.
No doubt about it. I'm going to stay in the NFC West, though, and go with another team and player, the Arizona Cardinals. And let's talk about Kyler Murray for a second. Going into Dallas, obviously a place he's very familiar with, given his roots playing high school football in the area and originally going to Texas A&M. But look, you look at what he was able to accomplish in this game, 300 total yards, couple of touchdown passes, and the team, by and large, whether it was special teams or you're seeing some of the trick plays and what came from that, but also the defense. I mean, holding the Dallas Cowboys to only 45-yard rushing, 3 of 11 on third downs, and forcing a turnover. They were dominant the entire game. They led the entire game. It was a big-time statement by the Arizona Cardinals, who I think have been hearing a lot of chatter about, hey, is it Cliff Kingsbury? Is it the Cardinals? What's the deal? They seem to fall apart in the second half of the seasons. Even going back to Cliff Kingsbury's time at Texas Tech, you could actually make that case looking at his second half of the season records. That wasn't the case here. They came out, dominated from the start to finish, and made a big-time statement as obviously they're getting prepared to head into the postseason.
I will say the one concerning thing about that, Kyler saying, I'm at home in Dallas. I'm not going to lose here. He needs to learn to win at home in Arizona. All right, a team or player that disappointed you in Week 17. Brady, we'll start with you.
It's got to be the Miami Dolphins, and you hate to see it. I mean, look, they had control of their own destiny. If they won out, they were in the playoffs. And this was a team that started 1-7 and had ripped off 7 straight. And unfortunately, after those 7 straight games of wins and the way Tua Tagovailoa played, the way the defense improved, it sort of made you forget some of the things you saw in the first 8 games of the season. Well, they all came storming back in this one. Look, I get it. It was raining. It wasn't necessarily the best conditions in this game, but lack of ball security, lack of production. The defense was a shell of itself. I mean, the offense didn't even get into the red zone for Tennessee at any point in time. They had a hard time sniffing it. And the Tennessee Titans ran for over 200 yards. Ryan Tannehill was showing a bunch of his highlights. He didn't have to do much. They were for 120 yards and a couple touchdowns? I mean, it was by and large the rushing attack of the Titans and just lack of the ability to do anything on offense for the Dolphins. So, now that they're eliminated from the postseason, it leaves a lot of questions as to what's going to happen this offseason, in the draft, in free agency, potential trades for the Miami Dolphins heading into 2022.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Brady, too. And it was a bummer to see them not be eliminated from the playoffs, but the way they were eliminated, only put up 3 points. That was ugly. For my most disappointing team, game, whatever you want to call it, was my former team, the New York Giants. I mean, it was abysmal. So you had this dumpster fire of a game between 2 bad teams, the Bears playing against the Giants. You'd think maybe it could provide some entertainment that, okay, you'll see something out there from the Giants, some fight in a game they could possibly win. And it was anything but. It was a complete dumpster fire. And now the organization has got to be looking itself in the mirror saying, we have to make some drastic changes. Offensively, it was one of the worst performances I've seen. Defensively, they couldn't get off the field. And now they've had back-to-back games with less than 200 yards of total offense, and they're 5th loss of the season by, get this, 20 or more points. That to me looks like a team that has thrown in the towel. And I know everybody's had injuries and you've had excuses, but you got to show out there and put a better product. So now I think the writing is on the wall. You have to make changes. It's just a matter of how many are you going to make. Does Joe Judge survive, which it appears he does? Is Daniel Jones getting another chance? It appears he does. But the front office has been a dumpster fire itself. They have to make a change there. They will make the change, and it's going to be a massive opportunity for someone around a franchise that has been the worst in the NFL in the last 5 years, with the worst record in the league. And then the Kenny Golladay signing was just the latest example of what have been some really bad moves by the front office. The New York Giants are a train wreck, but it does look like they're going to make some changes after this season. I just hope they get the right ones.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.